What do you think of Trump?
I myself, I think I think I'm going to vote for him.
Actor Dennis Quaid is kind of a stud. I mean, I'm a child of the 80s. I liked him in all those movies. You remember The Right Stuff? He's awesome. And he's been working consistently his entire career. Just recently, he finished a biopic on Ronald Reagan. It's strangely titled Reagan. And he plays Ronald Reagan from his time in Hollywood to the governor's mansion in California to becoming the most important president of the last 150 years. And so he's doing a publicity tour. He was on Piers Morgan's show in the United Kingdom and made a stunning revelation.
What do you think of Trump?
I myself, I think I think I'm going to vote for him.
Really?
Yeah, in the next election. Yes, I am.
Are you ready for the blowback?
Well, yeah,
which inevitably comes.
Well,
with Trump?
you know, I think this election, everybody's got to. I think that you're going to take a side or whatever, but it just seems to me, it just makes sense. I was ready not to vote for Trump until what I saw is more than politics. I see a weaponization of our justice system.
Yeah,
and a challenge to our Constitution.
So let's just pause there real fast, about a minute into this, because a lot has been revealed already. First of all, I do love the Piers Morgan moment when he says, I think I'm going to vote for Trump. And Piers starts laughing and saying, are you ready for the blowback? It's not even like a case of pretending anymore, that if you're a public figure and you admit that you're voting with half of the voters, more than half of the voters in the United States of America, that you're going to be persecuted, that you're going to be put upon, that you're going to be ridiculed, that you're going to be mocked, that you're going to get blowback, as Piers Morgan put it. You know, they used to say that that's not true and it's a conspiracy theory and nobody's job or lives are affected if they publicly say who they're voting for. And now we've reached the point where a television interviewer is pointing it out and laughing at the fact. But there's nothing funny about it. As someone who used to work in the entertainment industry, let me just tell you something. It is easier to come out as gay, as transgender, as a pedophile, frankly. Now, don't get me wrong. You'd have to have it in your past, certainly. Oh, yeah, I had some tough times, you know, but now I'm past it and I'm okay. But you will be more easily accepted at the workplace, on a movie studio, a television set, or on a Broadway stage, if you've got those kind of things that you're coming out about, than if you're a conservative Republican. That's why whenever you see actors who say, yeah, I'm really more of a libertarian, what it means is they're conservative. They just don't want to say it. And so here's Dennis Quaid. And it already begins with this assumption that if you're an actor and you're voting for Trump and you're public about it, you're done for. But then he steers into this thing, which I find fascinating. He says, yeah, I was ready not to vote for him, but then I saw the weaponization of the justice system against him. You got to wonder how many American voters are like Dennis Quaid, who probably had Trump fatigue. I mean, we saw this play out in the Republican nomination process, didn't we? You know, it was never super tight, but I felt like Ron DeSantis was in swinging distance. He actually probably had a chance, if it was a normal primary process, to make his case as to why he might get the nomination. Now, of course, that never happened for many reasons, but I think the top reason is that when Donald Trump was indicted on these very charges he's facing right now in Manhattan, his numbers shot through the roof because people rallied behind him. They rallied around him because they saw that it was completely unfair. And they saw that if the powers that be and the Democrats who are in power are able to do this to him, then they can do it to any of us. And he suddenly becomes a sympathetic figure worth supporting and worth getting behind. And that's what's happened here with Dennis Quaid. And I find it fascinating because I think he represents a lot of voters who identify now with what Donald Trump's going through. Somehow they have made a multi-billionaire real estate mogul television star who's married to a supermodel and who was president of the United States relatable. Forget about relatable. They've made him a sympathetic figure. They've made him the underdog. All right, back to Dennis Quaid.
Us as Americans, I don't think we're going to have. And, you You know, Trump is the most investigated person probably in the history of the world. And they haven't been able to really get him on anything.
And this whole Stormy Daniels thing to me is so kind of pathetic. I mean, whatever happens, as we sit here now, that we're going to find out in a few days whether he's guilty or not guilty. I don't think it matters.
It doesn't.
If anything, if he's found guilty, it'll probably help him more.
Yeah, even the way you just said it made it seem like that trial or guilty or not guilty is about Stormy Daniels,
Right.
which it's not.
No, it's not.
And in fact, what is the crime? I still can't figure it out.
Well, they
well, the crime, neither can they, because they haven't said what it is. They took a misdemeanor that had run out of its time and turned it somehow trying to turn it into a felony, and but they won't even say what that is.
No, in fact, the prosecutors took 4.5 hours yesterday. 4.5 hours. They took 4.5 hours to make their closing arguments and explain to the jury what the crime was. When CNN and MSNBC analysts took a look at their closing arguments, they were saying things like, well, it's a very nuanced crime. It's difficult to fully explain to the jury what's going on here. And just this morning, in giving his instructions to the jury, the judge in the case, who is already compromised and apparently corrupt, told the jury that they need to find him unanimously guilty on the one charge of falsifying records, but on the other crime, the crime that really hasn't been nailed down at all, they don't all have to agree on what that crime is. Yeah, the jury's able to convict him on a felony without really fully agreeing, all 12 of them, on what the other crime is that makes this misdemeanor a felony. That's the system that we're in right now. And both of these gentlemen are right. If he is found guilty, first of all, we think of how shocking and disturbing it is that we, the American people, assume going in that Donald Trump will be found guilty whether he is or not. That's where we are right now. In 2024, in America, and specifically in a place like New York City. I mean, it was Michael Avenatti, of all people, from that jailhouse interview he gave with MSNBC, who sort of gave away the store when he said, well, yeah, he'll get convicted, but that doesn't mean anything. If they had this trial in Mobile, Alabama, or in deep in the heart of Texas, or in Charleston, West Virginia, he'd be found not guilty. So what does that tell you about where we are right now? And what does that tell you about how important this conviction might be? All this is going to serve, if he does get convicted, is it's going to allow the Biden campaign and his pals in the media to constantly refer to Donald Trump as a convicted felon, which will literally mean nothing and, frankly, will make him even more popular, strangely. All right, back to Quaid.
Do you have to like Trump to vote for him?
No.
Do you like him personally?
Well, look, I was in the last campaign and in 16 and in 20, I found myself going, oh, please don't do that. Please don't say that. It's like these things have come out of his mouth. And but as president, the only thing I liked about Trump was everything he did.
Right.
What he did with Korea, with Rocket Baby, the way he defeated ISIS in 3 weeks. People don't even remember it had happened so fast. How he stood up for us overseas, and China, and the way he responded to China, he stands up to people, and that's what makes him a leader, rather than what I kind of compare it to what was going on in Jimmy Carter's administration, where we're trying to be everybody's friend and pal. And there's some evil people and bad actors in this world. And so, people might call him an asshole, but he's my asshole.
I'm telling you right now, we got to make Kevin McMahon. We've never tried to merch up this show, but I think it's time. I think we need the Trump mugshot. And the shirt has to say, he may be an asshole, but he's our asshole. What do you think?
I'll put it on the list of to-dos.
Wait, no, we got to prioritize this. Someone's going to beat us to it.
We'll bump it up to the top.
Actually, the Trump campaign should do it. Trump, he may be an asshole, but he's your asshole. it's honestly, I think Dennis Quaid is just so perfect. And may I say, I set this up in a way to juxtapose Robert De Niro yesterday on behalf of Biden with Dennis Quaid. Is there any comparison about the sanity, the rational thinking, the depth of arguments that he made? All Robert De Niro's got is, forget about it. He's a mobster and we're not going to have a country anymore. He's never going to leave office. And here's Dennis Quaid systematically, Korea, the national stage, how he represented us, and on and on and on. I love the way he puts it. The only thing I liked about Donald Trump was everything that he did. He summarizes exactly where the Trump campaign should be right now in asking for your vote. You might not like him. Okay, you don't have to. Guess what? Joe Biden's not very likable either. He's an asshole too. He's just somebody else's asshole. He's not your asshole. Joe Biden's a jerk. He always has been. He's an angry, angry man. And he's angry at you for not agreeing with him. He's also corrupt. He's just gotten away from it with it because he's on the right side, the left. You think he's a nice, gentle guy? Ask Clarence Thomas and his family. Ask Robert Bork and his family. Ask Mitt Romney, for crying out loud, who he called a racist. I mean, he's not a nice person at all. So we got two jerks to choose from, I guess, if that's how you want to put it. So now who's going to do the best for our country? That's the bottom line. Do you have to like your president? No, I haven't liked my president in years. So what? Grow up, will you? Grow up. You're not electing your best friend or a kindly uncle. You're electing somebody to get shit done. And Trump's 4 years versus the last 3.5 years, it's not even close.
Oh, I get
because
that.
because he's. I'll tell you one true thing about him is that I really feel that he is working for the American people. That's what he's all about, and I do believe that to be true and sincere.
And is Biden simply too old? Is that the biggest problem for him?
I don't feel he's at the helm.
Right.
I don't feel he's there. And I feel that he says things to get votes, not that he truly believes in them. And now I'm really going to get some blowback. But that's the way I feel. And at the same time, to everybody who is going to vote for Biden, I mean, I hope we can all learn to have a conversation about, where we are as Americans, that we all live in the same country. And it doesn't have to be the end of the world, whoever is elected.
Well, that's refreshing and delightful, and sadly, at this point, a little naive, but I hope he's right. I hope we can get to that point. I hope we've been through enough now where we can. But here's the thing about Dennis Quaid stating that, and what a great segment there on Piers Morgan. And I do have to say, as annoying as Piers Morgan is, and he is, I do like the fact that when he interviews someone, he shuts the hell up and lets them talk, which is something that drives me nuts when I watch cable news, especially a certain primetime host, who I won't name right now. Anyway. But Dennis Quaid knows better because he just, as I said, finished a film about Ronald Reagan. And I'm sure he did research about this. And I suggest you do the same research. Because if you look back at Ronald Reagan, you will see, shockingly, that the left in this country, the Democrats, including Senator Joe Biden of Delaware, and the media, and Hollywood, and popular culture, and academia, and the newspapers, and all the powers that be, they all said about Ronald Reagan pretty much everything they say about Donald Trump. And for that matter, every Republican, prominent Republican on the national stage for the last 50 years. There really is nothing new here. The only difference is that Trump isn't trying to be their friend, where all the others, including Ronald Reagan, he did. He made an effort. Trump doesn't even do that because they're going to call you that anyway, guys. Go out to Santa Barbara. Young America's Foundation runs the Reagan Ranch. In downtown Santa Barbara, they have a museum for the Reagan Ranch, and they have a display. It's Governor Scott Walker's favorite part of the entire museum about the Reagan Ranch because it has a whole display of all the things the media said about Ronald Reagan. And it's all the stuff they say about Trump. And for that matter, all the stuff they say about DeSantis and all the stuff they say about Governor Walker and any other prominent Republican who actually is a good conservative who wants to get stuff done. That's how it is. That's where we are. And at this point, it really doesn't matter to us anymore. We are completely numb to it. And it's good. That's a really good thing.